Hello, this video is in response to another video on YouTube entitled, quote, Tube Type CB Radios, Splatterbox / Harmonics, I don't think so, end quote. Posted by the fellow from Mike's Radio Repair. And the reason I put this up here is I don't feel like he told the whole story. In that video, he's trying to show that the tube radios are not splatterboxes, that they're very clean. And while his demonstration was valid, it didn't include any modulation. And that's where a lot of the distortion on these radios occurs. The specification for the D201 for audio distortion is only 10%, I believe. So 10% total distortion. And that level of distortion creates a fair amount of harmonics and extra frequencies that beyond your spoken voice. And those extra frequencies show up in the way of trash in the spectrum that some people might accuse of being splatter. So I'm going to try to show that. Also, before I go any further, let me say I really respect that fellow from Mike's Radio Repair, what he knows and what he's able to do. In fact, I would like for him to restore and recap this old hand-wired D201 over here. Tried to get in touch with him several times, but can't seem to do so. I think he's too busy. But that just wanted to get that out of the way. So anyway, what I have is a hand-wired D201 over here that has not been restored. Hasn't been realigned recently either. That said, it behaves reasonably well. The testing I've done on it thus far, it's reasonably clean for these types of radios. I'm sure it could be better, but it's it's certainly not something that's a complete mess. Hasn't been modified to defeat the compression circuitry or anything else that would make the thing a splatterbox. So it's just a good old radio that's in need of some TLC, but otherwise is okay. And the first thing I'll do is well, just to show you my setup, it's a little different from his. He ran his power through a couple of 30 dB attenuators. I'm running directly out of the back of the radio into a 40 dB coupler. So what that does is that picks off a signal 40 dB below the level that's coming out of the radio, and then vectors that into the spectrum analyzer. The main power itself is going into this bucket load here. So my signal into the spectrum analyzer is approximately 40 dB or so below the actual level. I put an offset, it won't focus, but there's an offset of 41 dB to allow for the cables as well. So that's my setup. And if I do the same thing that he did, where I'm on channel 19 over here, I key the mic, come look over here, you see how clean that is. Each one of those divisions on that display is 10 dB. So that's an order of magnitude. Each display or division represents a tenth of the power above it. So in this case, the noise level there, or the stuff that's being generated in the adjacent channels, is about 80 dB down, which is nothing. So that is an extremely clean carrier. If you weren't talking on this thing, nobody in the adjacent channels would detect anything because there's nothing there. Likewise, if I look at the harmonics, I'll do a start of 20 megahertz, a stop of 90 megahertz, and I'm going to decrease the resolution bandwidth a little bit here just to give me a little extra dynamic range. Let me do a little more even. I'm going to set the reference level to 36 dBm. All right, there you go. So now you can see the second harmonic in the middle of the screen, the third harmonic towards the right. Again, 10 dB per division, so that second harmonic's about 70 dB down. The third is about 63 dB down. That's way the heck down, nothing to worry about. That's still a clean signal from the standpoint of the carrier and its harmonics. So if I go back to channel 19, oops, 27.185 megahertz, span of 30 kilohertz. Make sure I got everything back together here. All right, so that looks good. All right, so now we're back centered on channel 19. The first third of this display is the lower channel. The right third of this display is the upper channel, and the middle third is the actual channel 19. So now here's where my video departs from the other one, and that is I'm going to turn the mic gain up, and I'm going to just modulate into the microphone here. And what I'll do is I'll turn the display on kind of a max hold. That way it will record the highest power level that it sees and kind of freeze on that. So I'll do that, and then I'll just start saying random stuff here. So as you can see, as I talk and you see the spectrum filling in, if this were totally non-distorted audio, I should just see spectrum in the 3 to 5 kilohertz range from the carrier, and that's it. Nothing else should be there. But because it is distorted, it's not overmodulating, but it is distorted, you see a lot of harmonics showing up, and that keeps moving out into the left and right channel. So I'll unkey the mic and we'll just look at this display a little bit. Again, the first third of the display is the lower channel. The right third is the upper channel. And if I put a marker on here, do a peak search and then a delta, and I move this out, so I'm a little over 5 kilohertz away from the carrier. That now is the edge of the other channel. It's 46 dB down. I mean, it's not horrible, but you've got some trash here, you know, as high as 46. I mean, that's not bad, but it's not zero for sure. Likewise, if I go on the right side, now I'm at 5 kilohertz. Now at that point, that's only 33 dB down from the carrier into the next channel. Now that is the edge of that channel. I mean, where the carrier would be on that channel would be 10 kilohertz away. That's right here, and that's 50 dB down or so. But you have some trash here as, you know, as high as 40 dB down. Now granted, 40 dB down is still relatively small. That's a tenth, that's a hundredth, that's a thousandth, that's a 10,000th. So you're talking about a 10,000th of the power level going into this adjacent channel. But it's not zero, and it's not nearly as small as what it is when you don't modulate it at all. We saw that in the original beginning part of this video. So I would welcome a revised video where he shows a newly restored radio, but goes ahead and does modulate, does talk, or he can just throw, I mean, you could throw an audio source in there as well, and you can see that there is you know, distortion. And that does make for a little splatter. There's no way around it. If you think of things in the limit, if you have no distortion at all, then this display, when modulating, would stop. Well, let's just do here. Let's say your voice goes to about 3 kilohertz. So that's 3 kilohertz away. That would mean if it's not distorted, everything would fall in these first 2 graticles when you're modulating. You shouldn't see anything out here if you were a perfect signal. Now, no radio is perfect, and particularly a $200 CB is not going to be perfect. But the reality is tubes produce distortion. People love that sound that it produces, which is distorted, and that's what creates some of this extra garbage out here. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to comment.